I never believed in the old stories, but now I wish I had. As an intelligence officer, I'd been trained to analyze patterns, uncover lies, and maintain a healthy skepticism. But nothing in my years of service prepared me for what happened on the Dyatlov Pass. This mission wasn't supposed to be any different, a simple retrieval of classified documents from an abandoned Soviet research facility nestled deep in the Ural Mountains. Yet here I am, haunted by shadows I can't explain. The climb to the pass was grueling, even in the military-issued snow gear. The air was thin, the wind like knives cutting through my skin. Around me, the landscape was a lifeless white void. The few trees that managed to claw their way out of the frozen ground stood like skeletal sentinels. Despite the harsh conditions, something about the area felt alive, as though the mountains themselves were watching. My guide, a grizzled local named Ivan, warned me in broken English about the mountain spirits. I dismissed his ramblings as folklore, a distraction from the bitter cold. The facility was exactly where the coordinates indicated, a crumbling concrete bunker half buried in snow and ice. Inside, the air was stale and carried a faint metallic tang, like blood. I wasn't alone. The walls bore strange carvings, spirals, humanoid figures, and symbols that seemed older than the bunker itself. They pulsed faintly in the dim light of my headlamp, as though reacting to my presence. Ivan refused to enter, muttering prayers and crossing himself. "The mountain remembers," he said, backing away. I ventured deeper, the silence oppressive. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, the sound bouncing back in irregular patterns. And then I heard it, a low, guttural growl, faint but distinct. I froze, my breath misting in the frigid air. The sound didn't repeat, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I pressed on, convincing myself it was just the wind. The documents were easy to find, tucked away in a rusted filing cabinet in the lowest level. But as I scanned the files, I noticed something odd. References to Project Volkodlak, a top-secret Soviet experiment involving cryptids. The files mentioned creatures captured in Siberia and the Caucasus, their abilities tested under extreme conditions. One name appeared repeatedly: Chertov Zver, or Devil's Beast. My pulse quickened. Was this some Cold War paranoia, or was there truth to these accounts? A sudden crash shattered my thoughts. My flashlight beam darted to the source. A metal shelf toppled over, its contents scattered. The room's temperature plummeted. My breath came out in thick clouds as frost formed on the walls. And then I heard it again, the growl, deeper this time, resonating in my chest. Something moved in the shadows, too fast to track. My instincts screamed to leave, but my training forced me to stay composed. Slowly, I backed out of the room, clutching the documents. The journey back to the surface was a nightmare. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, the exit always just out of reach. My flashlight flickered, plunging me into darkness for agonizing moments. The carvings on the walls now seemed to writhe, their humanoid figures turning their featureless faces toward me. Whispers echoed in a language I didn't understand, growing louder with each step. Ivan's words echoed in my mind. The mountain remembers. When I finally emerged into the open air, the sky was an ominous shade of gray. Ivan was nowhere to be seen. His footprints led away from the bunker but abruptly stopped as if he'd vanished into thin air. I followed the trail until I found his abandoned pack, its contents strewn about. Among them was a crude wooden talisman shaped like a man with elongated limbs. Something about it felt wrong, like it was watching me. The growls returned that night as I set up camp a few miles from the facility. They were closer now, circling my tent. I armed myself with the standard-issue rifle, but it felt useless against whatever was out there. The shadows around the campfire seemed alive, stretching and contracting unnaturally. Then I saw it, a massive figure standing at the edge of the firelight. It was easily 8 feet tall, its eyes glowing a dull amber. Its body was covered in thick matted fur, but its face was almost human, twisted in a grotesque snarl. I fired a warning shot, the sound deafening in the stillness. The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it tilted its head, almost curious, before retreating into the darkness. But it didn't leave. I could feel its presence, hear its heavy breathing just beyond the firelight. Sleep was impossible. By morning, the creature was gone, but its tracks, enormous clawed footprints, encircled the campsite. I hurried to pack up, the documents now feeling like a curse. As I made my way down the mountain, the forest seemed to close in around me. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent. I could make out words now. Leave, marked, never return. When I finally reached civilization, I handed the documents over to my superiors and reported Ivan's disappearance. They dismissed my account as stress-induced hallucinations, but I know what I saw, and I know I'm not safe. The talisman I found in Ivan's pack appeared on my desk weeks later, though I'd burned it in a desperate attempt to rid myself of its curse. The markings from the bunker now appear in my dreams, the whispers growing louder each night. I've started noticing figures in the periphery of my vision, amber eyes watching me from shadows that shouldn't exist. Whatever I encountered on the Dyatlov Pass isn't finished with me, and I fear it never will be.